I'm so not religious. Most of the students I work with are not religious, or at least they don't lead with religion as their main thing. And in my work, I've not had any students or families come to me asking for help finding the best religious school for their high schooler. If someone wants to go to a Bible school, they typically don't come to me. But here's the interesting part. I've had lots of students who, after college exploration with me, end up putting some religiously affiliated colleges on their list. How come? Today, we're looking at these places and exploring the broad range of religiously affiliated colleges, what to consider, and what questions to ask when opening up this big category of schools for consideration.
It's the College Talk Show. Today's theme, religiously affiliated institutions, with special guest Peggy Jennings. And now, here's your host, Chris Bell.
I am so happy to have our guest here. Peggy Jennings is an educational consultant with Jennings College Consulting. She really knows this subject. She gave a talk to a professional group I'm with, and she nailed it, and I wanted to make sure that you heard what she had to say. Peggy, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. On this subject of faith-based or religiously affiliated colleges, I think it's important to just start with at the beginning. What is one? What is the definition of this?
Well, it's a lot of things, and I think that's really my, big picture thing. The most important thing for families and students to understand is that it's really going to depend on the individual college. There are a variety of different kinds of religiously affiliated colleges in the US, and families who might be interested or families who think they might not be interested in a religiously affiliated college need to understand that they are not all alike.
Are there lots of different types of faith-based? Are there Christian and I don't know, Muslim and Buddhist and stuff, or how does this work?
Actually, not really. When we talk about faith-based colleges in the US, we are really virtually talking about entirely Christian colleges. But how that Christian faith plays out at colleges is what makes them distinctive.
Some families worry that a school's religious affiliation might impact the students who are LGBTQIA and their experience on that campus. Is this a concern that we should look out for, or that they should?
Yes, I think it is a very valid concern. And I think there are faith-based colleges that are not going to be right for LGBTQ students. And it has to do with those colleges' belief systems. And it may mean that those students' identities will not be supported and celebrated. And I think it's important. Students deserve to be someplace where who they are is celebrated. However, I think that students who are LGBTQ should not automatically exclude faith-based colleges, because there are colleges where they will be not just tolerated, but supported and celebrated. So that's one of the axes where families need to look carefully at how all of students' identities and who they are might be supported and tolerated. But yes, it is a concern, and one that students need to be looking at.
Shall we talk about the axes?
Yes.
What do you mean axes, and what are you picturing in your mind when you're talking about this?
Well, I think it can be helpful when you're taking a great big category, which is very diverse. I think it can be helpful to kind of split that up, because sometimes when I talk with a student and I say, would you consider going to a faith-based college? They're looking at that in a very, unitary way, and it's not at all. So let me try to split that into some categories.
Great.
So let's start out with, there are about 200 Roman Catholic colleges in the country. And even within that category of Roman Catholic colleges, each one of them is affiliated. And I don't want to go into a whole religious, history in here, but each one of them is going to be affiliated with a specific order of priests, nuns, friars, sisters, whatever. And each of those is guided by the philosophy that their order adheres to. And they're going to range from pretty conservative to fairly progressive. So it's important to understand that subset of faith-based colleges, Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
There are then about 150 what I would call evangelical Christian colleges in the US. Most of them are part of a group called the Coalition of Christian Colleges and Universities, the CCCU organization. These are colleges that are guided by a very upfront belief that students are going to be living, studying, preparing for a future almost entirely within a purely Christian faith framework. They are very conservative. They expect students to be living as Christians in every aspect of their lives. Okay, so
Okay.
kind of two ends of a continuum.
Got it.
In between that, there is a huge variety of Protestant colleges that range from those with a very loose historical tie to a Protestant denomination to those that have a closer affiliation with a particular Protestant denomination. And they can be anything from conservative to very, very progressive. So again, students who are looking at faith-based colleges need to understand that they need to drill down closer to what that particular faith connection is and how it influences day-to-day life.
Brilliant. That's just so helpful to think about this wide range.
And then you also mentioned sort of day-to-day life, and I
Yeah.
think that's really where the rubber meets the road, as we say, and what I think students and families need to be looking at. And again, I think there are some frameworks that families can look at as they evaluate a college. So I would say start with admissions. So the main thing that you can look at is at some colleges, and these are mostly evangelical colleges, a student might need to make a statement of faith as part of their application. Coalition of Christian Colleges oftentimes will require a statement of faith and a letter of recommendation from a pastor. That's an admissions criteria. Another place to look is in academics. So is the student going to be required to take a course in religion as part of their academic requirements? And if so, what kind of a course will that be? So at some colleges, it might be something very loose, like world religions. That's
I've
pretty
seen this.
non-denominational. Could you take a course in Buddhism and fulfill that? Could you take a course in ethics and fulfill that? Or must you take a course that's Bible-based? Must you take a course that has a doctrinal, focus? That's a different level of religion course. Another side to look for is whether or not the faculty must teach from a Bible-based perspective. Can they teach evolution, for example? So that's from the academic perspective. The biggest thing to look for, and I think the thing that students are looking for, is student life kinds of issues. What does life look like on campus? Does the student have to go to chapel, required chapel? And what, is it a worship service, or is it just kind of a, do they have to go and think about a philosophical or ethical issue once a week, What about student conduct policies? Can students drink? Can they dance? Can they gamble? What are policies related to relationships among students of the opposite sex? Is there co-ed housing? Can students stay overnight with each other of the opposite sex? Visitation policies. Is there, and I'm going to say this in a very conscious way, is there an affirmation or celebration of anything other than a heteronormative viewpoint or orientation? In other words, can you celebrate anything other than traditional male-female relationships? That's important to know. Is there birth control available in the student health service? Is there abortion counseling or support if students need that? What kind of mental health services are available for students? In some colleges, the only mental health is spiritual counseling,
Got
you
it.
know, praying about whatever concerns you have. Are there dietary practices available for students who are not Christian? Can you get halal food? Can you get kosher food? All of that is something that students need to be looking at so that they make sure that their own faith practices are respected. And again, if they are agnostic or atheist, is that going to be okay too? So all of these questions
Wow.
should be important to help families decide, is this going to be a place where I'm going to be comfortable?
I once was talking to an admissions officer at DePaul in Chicago, and I was asking her, I'm like, teach me about Catholicism at DePaul. And she said, oh, Chris, we're a small C, not a capital C.
Well, the word Catholic, small c, if you look it up in the dictionary, it actually means wide variety. That's what the word means in the dictionary.
Oh, wow.
We think of it as attached to the word Roman Catholic, but it actually just means wide variety. And so when she was talking about that, she means we respect a wide variety of viewpoints. DePaul is affiliated with the Vincentian order, and they do tend to be a pretty progressive order. And so she was simply saying, we're going to be open to a wide variety of viewpoints. And that is very true of DePaul specifically, and of a number of Roman Catholic colleges.
You've visited a lot of campuses. Is there a faith-based college that really surprised you or felt more inclusive or more intellectually vibrant or something that you want to talk about?
What I'm going to say is that all students, even if they don't consider themselves religious, when I ask them what their own faith, beliefs are, they're like, yeah, I don't go to church. My family doesn't go to church. I think when I talk with them, however, about what they believe in, almost invariably, they want to make the world a better place. And that they can get into that despite the fact that they don't have a particularly faith tradition that they've grown up in.
That was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the information. If someone wants to find you, how would they locate you? How would they find you on the web?
Jennings College Consulting is probably the quickest way to find me. I'm located in East Central Pennsylvania in the heart of Amish country, and I'd be happy to hear from anybody who might want to reach out.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for your time. Stick around. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Bell College Consulting. Visit bellcollegeconsulting.com to learn more.
That was a great conversation with Peggy. She really explained the full range of religiously affiliated colleges. Now, it's the part of the show where I try to summarize what we covered today. I call it Top Tips.
Top tips. Top tips. Kind of a summary, but we call it top tips. Top tips.
Top tips regarding religiously affiliated colleges. Here we go. Number 5. There are a lot of them. Number 4. They vary significantly. So there's about 200 Roman Catholic colleges in the U.S. and they range from pretty conservative to fairly progressive. There are about 150 evangelical Christian colleges, members of the CCCU. These are focused purely on Christian faith and they are very conservative. And there are hundreds of colleges affiliated with a Protestant church, and these run the full range of the spectrum as well. Number 3, at some, the LGBTQ plus community is not tolerated. At others, it is celebrated. Number 2, when evaluating a college, look at the admissions policies, the academics, and student life, and that's a broad category that you need to dig into. And the number one tip regarding religiously affiliated colleges is students who want to make the world a better place might like these schools. And there you have it. That's the show on religiously affiliated colleges. Thank you again to Peggy Jennings. And remember, college is awesome.